you read the title, you already know exactly what's about to go down. If you've been following my channel, then you probably know about my Asuna obsession. I like Asuna. Asuna is my all-time favorite character in all of media. Not only do I find the character to be extremely appealing, but I personally find the character to be extremely relatable as well. Asuna is a character that's meant a lot to me over the years and has helped me through some of the hardest times in my life. Even if it weren't for that, she's just way too likable and endearing. I purposefully went out of my way to rewatch the show and put myself in a negative mentality trying to convince myself I hated this character, but I instantly crumbled. I couldn't do it. I can't dislike her. I just can't.
I can't stay mad at you. Look at that Ponam.
Well, apparently, CBR seems to disagree, given that they dedicated an entire article to slandering her, saying that she somehow ruined her own likability. CBR has surprisingly made a few hit pieces on Asuna, but this is the one I want to focus on today because of how egregious it is. I might cover more in the future. I also already made a video covering one of their Kirito articles, so definitely check that one out if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Number 10, she gains a reputation for being a Berserk healer in later games for her recklessness. This first point will especially annoy viewers who are also MMO fans. In Alfheim Online, Asuna plays as a healer, but she doesn't really drop her all in rapier playstyle. This earns her the title of Berserk healer, and it can be a bit off-putting to think about a healer acting like a frontline DPS. It's probably due to the fact that the nature of characters is tied to their race, and Asuna plays as an Undine, which is a support class in ALO. There aren't really any other good attack-based classes within the game that suit Asuna better, either, which is a shame.
Okay, we literally just started and my brain already hurts. Yes, Asuna takes up a support role, but she still plays aggressively due to her experience in SAO. She spent 2 years of her life being a military leader, so it's totally understandable how she would want to take things more easy in a less dire environment where there aren't any life or death consequences. But due to her caring good nature and her compassion for others, she still takes it upon herself to actively participate in the fight because she wants to help in any way she can rather than take a back seat. She prioritizes helping others over pure optimization. It's also worth mentioning that Lifa also acts as support, so she can afford to get more involved in the action on occasion. This attacker type of healer fighting style suits her not just due to her experience in SAO, but it also suits her personality really well. Also, I think it's a bit weird how this person acts like hybrid builds or multi-purpose builds aren't a thing. Attack healers can be some of the most busted builds in some games. It's also worth mentioning that Asuna actually does have a second avatar in ALO that is much more heavily focused on DPS and better suited for combat scenarios. Also, how the fuck does any of this take away from her likability? Like, I'm genuinely trying to wrap my mind around what this person is even trying to say here. How does game design have any effect on how likable she is? That's like saying Goku isn't likable because he doesn't use the Kaioken, or Legolas isn't likable because he prioritizes his bow and arrows over his sword. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's a total non sequitur. Game mechanics and playstyle do not equate to character likability.
Number 9, although she has the makings of a strong female lead, she leans on Kirito a bit too heavily. Asuna comes off as an incredibly independent character at the start who's strong-willed and self-motivated. However, as more of her backstory before meeting Kirito is revealed, it comes to light that Asuna actually doesn't care whether she lives or dies at the start of SAO. It's only after Kirito shows care and consideration towards her and helps her slow down enough to enjoy simple things like food does she starts to care. It's noted that she often uses Kirito as a main source of inspiration and can act lost without him.
Okay, out of everything said in this article, this is probably the thing that annoyed me the most. Literally, what's wrong with any of that? They're describing the plot and her character development, but they frame it in a negative way and don't ever explain why it's a bad thing. Throughout the series, Asuna is constantly suffering from existential despair and is trying to rely on her own strength, both physically and emotionally, with the responsibilities that weigh on her shoulders due to being second in command of the strongest guild in the game. Kirito becomes her sense of escape from the stress of her daily life and grows closer to him and appreciates the comfort he brings her. How is any of this a bad thing? Dependence on others isn't weakness. Her emotional connection to Kirito doesn't come at the cost of her agency, given she saves his life countless times throughout the series. Kirito isn't a crutch. He's the catalyst that unlocks her full potential. The type of relationship she has with Kirito helps humanize her and fleshes out her character. It actually feels refreshing, compared to the average garbage that's shoved down our throats by fucking Hollywood. Every time I see a girl boss character like Captain Marvel, I just roll my eyes because I already know exactly what to expect. She's going to emasculate all the men around her and act like she's special because she's a woman, even though there's nothing uniquely feminine about her role, and if a man were to take her place, then the movie would generally more or less be the same. I don't care about your emotionally sterile Mary Sue self-insert power fantasy. A bad character is still a bad character. I actually appreciate how Asuna has moments of weakness throughout the story, where she's allowed to be vulnerable. It makes the character feel more genuine and endearing. It also shows that you can have a character be strong in the emotional sense, rather than a physical one. I don't care if your girl boss character can blow up a planet if she doesn't struggle, because then that strength isn't earned. Asuna's journey of reclaiming selfhood has emotional depth. Rey Palpatine is just invincible and boring. Also, remember this point for later, because it'll be important.
Number 8, she can be surprisingly pessimistic, especially when she first learns the true nature of SAO. One thing that's surprising about Asuna, given her on-screen personality, is that she immediately stops seeing the value of her own life after she's trapped with an SAO. For the first few weeks, she does nothing but seclude herself in an inn-room, only deciding much later to do something about her circumstances instead. She goes about obtaining level ups as fast as possible. However, she does this very hastily without regard to her own life, leading Kirito to comment that she's sloppily wasting sword skills that she could be saving, to which she responds that it doesn't matter because she's dead either way, showing that she'd already given up.
Gee, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the fact that she's in a fucking death game. Man, I really liked Katniss Everdeen at the beginning of the story, but after the Hunger Games started, she just became way too pessimistic. See how stupid that sounds? Acute depressive disassociation seems like a totally normal response. Like, is this person just not able to read between the lines? Literally, how the fuck else is she supposed to react? This form of victim blaming is actually pretty fucking disgusting. Pathologizing passive suicidal ideation and survival behavior is extremely disingenuous. On top of that, Asuna already didn't value her own life all that much because she was constantly under pressure from her parents who treated her like a trophy for their own self-gain. When she became trapped in SAO, her first thought was how angry her parents would be because she wouldn't be able to take her exam at school.
She lost focus.
She'd lost
focus. Mrs. Adler, in March of 1999, didn't Diane Adler attempt to take her own life?
This episode was minor. It was nothing.
I have the hospital report in my hand.
It was nothing. Diane was not like regular people. She was extraordinary. And extraordinary people come with singular issues and needs. I had responsibilities which went beyond the mother-daughter relationship. And I think if she were here today, Mr. Attorney, she would refute your baseless insinuations that she would give up a brilliant future and take her own life just because Mummy didn't get her a little red wagon.
No more questions.
It's also important to note that she's only 15 at the beginning of the series. Not only was she spoiled by the luxuries of living in a wealthy upper-class family, just to have it stripped away and hit with a very harsh reality check, but even ignoring that, this kind of scenario would take a mental toll on anyone that young. The person writing this even acknowledges she doesn't stay in that state for long thanks to Kirito. Her resolve is a major part of her character development. This is all psychologically coherent. Trauma response is not a legitimate character flaw, and critiquing it as such is just really fucking stupid.
Number 7, she commonly disagrees with Kirito on tactics despite him being the one with prior MMO and SAO experience. It would make sense if Asuna insisted her and Kirito take a different route when it comes to party roles and mechanics if she has prior knowledge of how MMOs work. Instead, she gets grumpy and tries to disagree with Kirito on how the very first boss they take on together should be handled. Before this, the only experience she's shown fighting is incredibly sloppy and without regard for her own life. Being newly thrust into the position of half of a supporting party, it makes much more sense that she'd instead listen to Kirito's advice given the circumstance.
That literally doesn't happen. It isn't until after she joins the Knights of the Blood Oath and makes a name for herself that she starts butting heads with Kirito. At this point in the story, she's far more experienced and burdened with the responsibilities as co-commander that give her less leeway and flexibility than Kirito. By the time they're fighting the Kobold Lord, she is very cooperative and open to learning. She's asking Kirito questions about the mechanics of the game, not tactically undermining his experience.
Number 6, she can come off as manipulative, challenging Kirito to a bet she knows she'll win. For the most part, Asuna is a genuinely sweet character, but there are some actions of hers that can come off as questionable. There's a moment where Kirito and Asuna are attempting to gather materials to enhance Asuna's blade, and she challenges him to see who can wipe out a certain number of mobs faster. The loser of the bet has to buy them both dinner, and Asuna uses this to score an expensive dessert from Kirito. It can come off as a bit distasteful, given Asuna's reputation as the lightning flash, a scarily speedy swordswoman.
They're having a friendly competition. There's nothing wrong with the playful rivalry. That's a pretty blatant violation of Hanlon's razor. Also, Asuna hasn't earned her reputation as the Lightning Flash yet. This is still very early into the game. They only just beat the first floor boss. This was also a pretty clever way to reveal to the readers how Asuna's build works and how she's so much stronger than she should be. This scene is meant for characterization and exposition.
Number 5, she understands how important PvP combat is, but can't bring herself to practice it. Early on into their journey together, Kirito recounts a player killing that he witnesses during the beta test. Asuna is an incredibly intelligent character and realizes that, if there's any chance that she would be put into a dangerous PvP situation, she should practice her PvP skills to be able to better defend herself. This is a wonderful idea, and there's no better practice partner than someone like Kirito, who won't make any overly aggressive moves and will help her learn at a comfortable pace. She refuses on account of being unable to fight him in combat, and given the context, it just doesn't come off well.
First off, we literally do see them training together. Secondly, I don't know, maybe it's because Asuna doesn't like fighting, especially if it's against Kirito, somebody she cares about. PvE and PvP aren't the same thing. Asuna isn't competitive like Kirito is. Her emotional aversion to interpersonal violence against somebody close to her, mixed with the trauma of SEO's real death overriding her own logic, seems like a pretty reasonable character flaw to me. I swear, man, it's like fucking Gohan from Dragon Ball Z all over again.
Number 4, she becomes more disagreeable around Kirito after becoming the sub-leader of the Knights. After barely managing to clear the 25th floor, the main clearing guild is nearly wiped out, and the Knights of the Blood Oath are formed. Asuna is chosen to become its sub-leader, but as soon as she does so, her personality takes a serious shift for the worse. She begins disagreeing with Kirito when it comes to just about all of his boss and floor-clearing strategies. She's shown not always fully agreeing with his plans before, but this new position of authority only serves to amplify her ability to bicker and argue even further.
Maybe because people's lives are on the line, and Asuna can't afford to stop and think about the morality of her methods, unlike Kirito, who isn't responsible for anybody. Especially after what just happened on the 25th floor. Or maybe she doesn't appreciate the fact that Kirito doesn't respect her authority or leadership. They spent months together fighting side by side and helping each other grow, yet in spite of that, Kirito still treats her like she's a newbie. Asuna is finally growing into her own, but Kirito still doesn't trust her decision-making. He knows how capable she is, but still argues with her anyway just to be a contrarian dickhead. Of course she's gonna be pissed at him. Why wouldn't she?
Number 3, one of her plans involves allowing innocent NPCs to be killed as a distraction. The boss of the 56th floor proves to be quite challenging, as it's immune to frontal attacks while also being positioned in a way that makes it near impossible to reach its weak point. Asuna proposes that they lure it to a nearby town and allow it to start wiping out NPC villagers, as the group can then attack its weak spot while it's distracted. Kirito vehemently disagrees with this plan, and it makes Asuna come off as cruel, as many NPCs within the game can feel relatively alive. Her and Kirito eventually duel to decide whose plan they follow, to which Asuna loses.
Okay, so while the story does frame Asuna as the one who's in the wrong, that honestly doesn't matter. Just because a story frames a character to be in the wrong and portrays them in a negative light, that doesn't always mean they're actually in the wrong. In the Disney movie Wish, the villain Magnifico is presented as evil because he doesn't want to grant all wishes. But because the script was so badly written and not well thought out, it unintentionally made him out to be the tragic hero if you stopped to think about the plot for longer than 5 seconds. Meanwhile, the actual protagonist of the film looks like an unreasonable dipshit. Not all wishes are good, and even wishes with good intentions can have unintended consequences. Some of the worst crimes of the 20th century were done under the idea of helping others. Millions of people died in famines caused by communist states that believed collectivized farming would better society. By the end of the movie, people are able to grant their own wishes, and the film just acts like this won't end in a disaster. There are plenty of other great examples. John Walker from Falcon and the Winter Soldier killing a terrorist that endangered the public. Paul Atreides from Dune trying to navigate a no-win situation. The RDA from Avatar prioritizing the survival of the human race. You are allowed to interpret a story differently and consider things the writer didn't. This is what we call death of the author. Just because you have ominous music playing in the background doesn't mean the character actually did anything wrong within the context of the situation. I might be in the minority here, But I very strongly disagree with the story's framing of this scene. I always thought it was really fucking stupid how Kawahara tried to paint Asuna as the bad guy in this scenario. People's lives are at risk. As a military leader, it's her duty to come up with a plan that will reduce casualties. Looking at this through the lens of utilitarian logic, she's totally justified. She's thinking statistically, not idealistically. She doesn't have time to reflect on the morality of her methods. Especially since the NPCs are very basic AI that aren't capable of feeling real emotions like Yui and will just respawn like nothing ever happened. Kirito is honestly a fucking moron here for not understanding or realizing how under pressure Asuna is. Her hands are tied and she has limited options. And using the NPCs as bait is a valid solution because it's an active step towards fixing the problem. But instead of cooperating with her, he chooses to bicker with her and questions her authority. No, Asuna, we can't kill the NPCs because they're just as real as us. What are you talking about? Asuna's plan is perfectly tactically sound and prioritizes the greater good of the players who inherently have more value than the NPCs. Meanwhile, Kirito's being a dumb, whiny little bitch who provides zero alternatives. Him being a moral grandstander with no real plan is incredibly stupid and surprisingly out of character for him. He's wasting everybody's time over trivial, petty bullshit and constantly getting in Asuna's way. I am provided with no sufficient evidence to side with Kirito over Asuna in this scenario. It's pretty hard to disagree with Asuna, since Kirito's refusal to go along with her plan arguably puts real human lives at greater risk. If the raid failed because they prioritized being moral, real people would have died permanently. He's prioritizing a moral absolute over practical survival, a luxury that Asuna, as a leader, doesn't have.
But they're not just objects. NPCs are different than rocks and trees. Look, they're...
You think they're alive? Really? In this game, they are just objects. And unlike us, if they're killed, they can always respawn.
Yes, exactly.
Kirito's virtue signaling while people's lives hang in the balance. Meanwhile, Asuna's actually taking her job as co-commander seriously and actually being pragmatic.
For your information, the word pragmatic means practical. My god.
Number 2, she falls asleep next to Kirito after harshly scolding him for doing the exact same thing. Asuna comes off as an incredibly serious character overall compared to Kirito. While both of them do want to clear SAO, Kirito takes time to enjoy moments that feel more like everyday life from within their trapped virtual confines, whereas Asuna still refuses to at this point in the series. She harshly scolds Kirito for falling asleep and lazing around while everyone else is working hard to clear the boss, but she ends up joining him after an extremely short rebuttal from the swordsman. She sends her other guild members ahead without her to do this, making her seem rather hypocritical.
Now wait a minute. Well, would you look at that? I love how this person selectively chooses to ignore the context surrounding Asuna's character. This change in her character is sufficiently justified and has a proper groundwork laid out for her. This isn't abrupt, nor does it contradict her characterization. This isn't hypocrisy, this is growth.
Number 1, Asuna's hesitance to kill Kirito in self-defense nearly cost her and Kirito their lives. Kirito ends up betraying Kirito and Asuna while out with them, and it's at this point that both of their lives are in genuine danger. Asuna tries to get herself to kill the man in justified self-defense, but can't bring herself to do so. This enables Kirito to strike a blow not only against her, but on Kirito as well, and even causes the latter to lose one of his hands.
Wow. What an absolute bitch Asuna is for respecting the sanctity of life. I mean, it's not like the story ever portrays her to be a selfless, compassionate, empathetic, caring person who puts the needs of others before herself. That would that would just be silly.
You ever doubt yourself, Frank?
Not even for a second.
Really? Really? You never think for 1 second?
Shit, I just killed a human being. It's being pretty generous.
A human being who did a lot of stupid shit, maybe even evil, but had one small piece of goodness in him. Maybe just a scrap, Frank, but something. And then you come along and that one tiny flicker of light gets snuffed out forever.
Also, Kirito is unarmed and surrendering. This isn't self-defense anymore. This is extrajudicial killing. This is a crucial ethical and legal distinction. If Asuna were to kill him here, that would be summary execution of a non-combatant. That's a fucking war crime. Using unjustified lethal force would make her a murderer. If a suspect surrenders and willingly cooperates with the police, they can't just shoot him. That's fucking illegal. Asuna hesitating to kill a defenseless man is a sign of her humanity, not a character flaw. This isn't a weakness, this is a high moral standard, which by the way is actually harder to maintain within the context of a death game than simply just becoming a killer. I don't want yandere Asuna. She's perfectly fine as she is. Yes, this resulted in Kirito losing his hand and developing the trauma of killing a man, but Asuna took full responsibility and accountability for it. She felt fucking awful. She felt such immense guilt that she was about to distance herself from him just to keep him safe. Something that I've noticed throughout this article is that the writer repeatedly mistakes emotional complexity, trauma responses, and moral compromise with character flaws. They also mistake human flaws for writing flaws. Also, I'm willing to bet that if Asuna had actually killed Cordeal here, then this person would just bitch about how unjustified Asuna was and how wildly out of character this is for her. So that's the end of the article. And while this one might not be as bad as their Kirito article I covered previously, this one probably annoyed me much more on a personal level. Not just because I like Asuna, but because CBR constantly omits crucial context. They constantly mistake character traits, development, and context-driven decisions for legitimate character flaws. Asuna is a strong leader forced to make hard decisions, a trauma survivor learning to live again, and a loving partner in a healthy relationship built on mutual trust and support. If you think any of these things makes her unlikable, well then it just seems like all you really care about is a simplistic femcel power fantasy over a complex and well-written female character. People are entitled to their own opinions and they're allowed to like and dislike whatever they want, but I just can't help but defend SAO when people's reasons for hating it are just completely misleading and wrong. I am so sick and tired of people misrepresenting it and spreading misinformation, making it out to be something that it's not. I'm tired of lazy SAO hate and I'm not putting up with it anymore. If CBR wants sterile, emotionless power fantasies, mostly written by old white guys, they can keep it. I'll take Asuna's earned strength, vulnerability, and heart every time. So yeah, that's all. Let me know if there are any other articles or videos you guys would like to see me respond to. Catch y'all later.